Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I am going to be doing a review, both with no spoilers and spoilers, of Joe Abercrombie's The Devils. Joe Abercrombie is one of my favourite authors of all time. I've read 10 of his books, every single one I loved. When he announced this book, I was a little bit nervous but also excited because it's Abercrombie, so obviously I was going to be excited. But I was concerned because it was his first book outside of the First Law world for quite a while, and also because the sound of the plot, to be honest, didn't really appeal to me. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the ragtag group of misfits getting together to do a mission. It worked really well in First Law, but I have noticed, and I have talked about this before on my channel, I think it was about a year ago, of this being like a very common trope used in grimdark fantasy, and it's often very cringy and not very well executed. So I was a little bit wary, but I thought if anybody could do it justice, it's probably Joe Abercrombie. And with an author like Joe Abercrombie, his name is obviously synonymous with smart, cynical, and brutally compelling fantasy. It's what we all love about his writing. He is known for his sharp character work, morally grey complexity, and razor-sharp wit. And that is why The Devils was a staggering disappointment, and that is an understatement. This book wasn't just a misfire. It feels like an entirely different writer, clumsily imitating Abercrombie's voice with all of the wrong instincts. And I cannot believe I am saying this. Let's go into my non-spoiler thoughts. This will only be a couple of minutes long, and then I'll go into my spoiler-filled thoughts. On paper, this should work, given that he's done a very similar story with The First Law. You know, a condemned band of monsters and criminals forced to protect a young heir to a crumbling empire. Sounds pretty legitimate. We've got a whole different cast of characters. You know, it's grim dark meets the Suicide Squad, but instead of tension, character depth, or narrative cohesion, we get endless shallow banter, nonsensical world building, and characters who read like one-liner RPG archetypes than actual people. The pacing is very sloppy in this book. The tone swings between faux grim tragedy and Saturday morning cartoon antics. The violence is cartoonish, the stakes are muddy, and the emotional beats are either missing or instantly undercut by someone making a lame joke. In this book, there are dick jokes and there are fart jokes. There are fart jokes, folks. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Abercrombie himself calls this a knockabout adventure, and that's fair enough, but knockabout shouldn't mean incoherent, smug, and juvenile. There's very little of what made The First Law so special and compelling, and what little there is feels like a parody of his past self, and that is so sad to say. If you are looking for the rich, emotional, and thematic weight of his previous works, it is not here. If you're looking for dumb fun, even that is debatable in my mind. This book feels like fan fiction. It feels like somebody wrote this using ChatGPT, but write it in Joe Abercrombie's voice. And I just cannot believe this actually passed the editing table. And I also cannot believe that so many people are raving about this book. It is astonishing to me that so many people, reviewers, booktubers, other people who are involved in the book community, are raving about this book so much. And even though I don't generally listen to booktube recommendations anyway, in fact, I do not listen to booktube recommendations anymore, if you needed another reason not to, this book is that reason. So let's dig into my spoiler-filled thoughts now, and let's go into why The Devils fails on nearly every level. If you haven't read the book and you don't want to hear spoilers, turn off at this point. If you don't care, or if you have read it, please do keep watching. So let's talk a little bit about the plot. This is a book that has a mission without real meaning and without real stakes. The premise is incredibly simple. We have a monk named Brother Diaz. He recruits a squad of supernatural prisoners who are supposed to escort Alex, who is a teen street thief who turns out to be the true heir to the throne of Troy. The idea is to survive long enough to reach Troy and have Alex crowned empress before her psychotic cousins consolidate power. Fine, cool. You expect a decent amount of politics, some backstabbing, great, stuff that we like in our fantasy books. But here is the problem. It is all incredibly surface level. The entire book is a sequence of disconnected vignettes, ambush, betrayal, magic fight, banter, repeat. There's no real escalation, no emotional glue holding any of the scenes together, holding any of the characters together. You could reshuffle half of the book and lose absolutely nothing. Major turns like Alex discovering her lineage or characters dying have absolutely zero weight because we build zero relationship with the characters, and also because nothing has been earned. It's all just a bunch of noise. Let's talk about characters now. As we all know, characters are my favourite thing, and all of these characters are just gimmicks, they're all caricatures, and it is really disheartening to say that about a Joe Abercrombie book, because this guy is the king, I tell you, of characters, but we're not seeing it in this book because none of these characters are compelling. Brother Diaz, who's a monk, who's the one who brings everybody together, fine. Like, he was maybe the only half decent character, but even he just falls flat in every regard. We have like a bunch of different character types that I'm not going to go too deep into, but we have like an invisible elf, we have a necromancer, we have a vampire, we have a knight, and they're all just so cringe. Not one of them has any sort of depth or emotional weight attached to them. I had absolutely zero connection to any of these characters. And this is coming from the guy who wrote one of my favourite characters of all time, Logan Ninefingers. Shivers is another one of my favourite characters of all time. We have Glockter. We have so many amazing characters that come out of that world, and yet not one of these characters feels fleshed out, and that is shocking for Joe Abercrombie. There is one character, Alex, who I mentioned is like the heir to the throne, who could have been an emotional anchor to the rest of the characters, but she's dragged through the book without zero agency. We're told that she is important, brave, the heir to the empire, but she doesn't do anything. She literally does nothing. Nothing. There are very brief glimmers, but none of it really builds into anything meaningful. The found family trope is one that I really like, but this just feels like it's pasted on with absolutely zero emotional payoff. Crazy, I know. Let's go on to tone, because I think tone is a big issue for me. This book doesn't know what it's trying to do. It cannot pick a tone and stick with it. One chapter ends with like mass slaughter and innocent civilians dying. The next opens with vampires cracking jokes about wine preferences and necromancers comparing skull sizes. I get it. It's supposed to be satirical. It's supposed to be a bit absurd, but it just comes across as really dumb. It wants to be edgy and fun, but instead it is glib. Abercrombie wants balanced brutality with meaning. Think The Hero is one of my favourite books of all time, but here violence and jokes are flung together with absolutely no rhyme or reason. It feels completely off. And when you insert all these ridiculous, dumb jokes, I don't know, something's gone wrong in my opinion. Let's talk about world building a little bit. The Abercrombie, I think, really tries to build something new here, which I respect the attempt, but, you know, I didn't like it. It's a warped alternate Europe where Carthage still thrives and the church has a female pope. Cannibalistic elves fight on the fringes, so there's a lot of conflict, right? Cool in theory, but it's really barely explored. Cities blur together, politics are hand-waved, and historical details feel like decoration, not function. And this is the guy who wrote The Blade itself, which is all about building world, all about building the emotional stakes, the political stakes, the characters. Like, a lot of people found that book difficult to read because it's all about building the world. In this one, nothing is built. It's tacked on, it feels cheap, and it doesn't feel lived in. And I cannot believe I'm saying that about an Abercrombie book. The supernatural stuff is also treated with like Marvel movie weightlessness, immortality, demon possession, necromancy, all thrown in with absolutely no stakes or grounding. It's crazy. It's crazy. None of it has any meaning. None of it feels grounded. None of it feels interesting to me as a reader. I just don't care. Let's talk a little bit now about themes. And I really don't think any of them really land, to be honest. And I know this is the first book in what I think will be a trilogy, but we should already start to get a sense, right? And there's hints at deeper themes like redemption for monsters, found family, you know, under pressure, lots of hints around religious hypocrisy, which is a theme in his other books, power and legitimacy in monarchy. In theory, a lot of these are quite interesting to me, but none of them stick. The book doesn't have the patience to really dig deep into these, or at least set the foundations of any of these. Every time it needs a moment of gravity, someone cracks a stupid joke or explodes another character into a bloody mist. There's absolutely no follow through. There's absolutely no time really spent building this world in the way that Abercrombie has done in his previous books. I'm going to read a few quotes because I like quotes, and quotes will showcase to you more than anything that I can say myself. I'll do 3, I think. So here's one quote. "Whoever would have thought a few months ago when he was diligently reviewing the monastery's accounts that slathered with gore would be a phrase he routinely employed." Come on. This is trying to be cheeky, but it just comes across as really juvenile. This feels like somebody trying to do a parody of like a fantasy book. Not good, not good. And I'm not one of these people that, like, I don't take these things too seriously, to be very clear. I know there's going to be a contingent of people who are being like, you need to, you know, take it less seriously and things like that. But the humor should still land, right? And as an author who has some of the best humor out there, for him to resort to these really cheap jokes is wild to me. It's wild. Let's do another one. "When you're headed through hell, you need the devils on your side." And this is not the first time this sort of one-liner happens. It happens constantly. I think it's meant to be cool, but it feels like a really stupid one-liner somebody would put on a t-shirt, and you'd find that t-shirt in like a clearance bin because nobody actually wants that one-liner on a t-shirt. It's just cringe, it's dumb, and what is the point? Another one is "Europe stares into the abyss." And this is, a character says this dead seriously after 300 pages of fart jokes, vampire gags, and necromancers like flinging skulls all around the place. The drama just doesn't land when everything is just utterly absurd and just has no real grounding in any sense of reality. It is just very surface level. It is just very bad, I think, at what it is trying to do. Like, there is a way this book could have been written to be silly and fun, but also still well written. But I don't think the author was able to achieve that. I am saying all of these critiques as the #1 Abercrombie fan. Self-professed #1 Abercrombie fan. I mean, you can literally see his books on my bookshelves. I have a dedicated section of my bookshelves for this author. I have another section over there that you can't see on video where I have all of his hardbacks. So this is an author that I adore, that inspires me as a writer, that has really influenced what I love in my books. He's played such a big role in shaping what I love about fantasy, but also about writing in general, reading and writing in general. So this is not easy for me to say these words, folks. It's painful for me to say, actually, and I cannot believe I am having to say these words, but it would be dishonest of me if I wasn't willing to share my real thoughts. So here you have them completely unfiltered. Am I going to continue on with this series? Absolutely not. I don't care. I want to stay away from it. And to be honest with you, after I finish editing this video, I never want to think about this book ever again. It is loud, it is shallow, and completely self-satisfied. It is a fantasy book trying to be edgy and clever, but ending up as empty and obnoxious. It has no tension, no soul, and worst of all, zero purpose. This is a book that Rebecca Yarros would write, in my opinion. This is a book that if you ask Rebecca Yarros to write grimdark fantasy, this is what she would write. And that is honestly the worst thing I could say to an author. So I think we should all think about that. I think if you are a fan of Abercrombie, I think you should skip it. I think if you are new to Abercrombie and you want to start reading his books, also skip it. This is not a reflection of what this author can actually write. Reread Before They Are Hanged, because that will remind you why this author is absolutely incredible. This book is an absolute disservice to this author's talent, and it's really disappointing that honestly this managed to get published, because I do not think it is a reflection of how good this author is at writing. I gave this book a 1.5 stars, and to be honest with you, I think I gave it a 1.5 just out of some sort of kinship to the author, because I really respect him. And you know, maybe it deserves to be a 0.5 or a 1, but you know, I'm being very candid here that I'm maybe trying to soften the blow a little bit, because I still adore his works. And yeah, I think we'll leave it at that, to be honest. If you have read this book, please do let me know your thoughts down below. I'm very, very curious, because I've heard very mixed things generally. So see you down below in the comments, folks. If you liked it, let me know. If you disliked it, also let me know, because I'm actually more interested in speaking to people who didn't like it, especially if you are an Abercrombie fan already. And I will see you there. Thanks for watching. Stay safe as always. Take care, and I will see you very, very soon.